All right, everyone. It is Tiger Talk Tuesday, and you are in for a real special treat. We have one of NHL's greatest in the house. We got Chris Pronger. When I went to say his name, when I was looking at his bio before, I wanted to be like Chris Pronger, like an announcer over top. So for those of you that are new to the series, this is episode 31. So athletes from all over, Olympians, Team Canada, NHL, NBA, they are coming forward to share about their transitions in their pro career. And the goal is really to help those struggling in silence, whether they've had to quit their sport due to injury, unforeseen circumstance, or retirement that forces them to hang up the jersey. So a little bit about our guest today. Chris Pronger is a former professional hockey player, entrepreneur, and investor. Obviously, he's a Hockey Hall of Famer. He's one of NHL's 100 greatest players ever. I actually, before I continue, I have his blades that I used to use when I played NCAA Division I ice hockey at UNH. I had these, I kept on to them. So I've had those in the garage ever since. He is known as one of the fiercest and most dominant defensemen in the history of the league. He built an impressive legacy during his 19 seasons in the National Hockey League. Over the course of his career, he was a four-time, not just one, four-time All-Star, and won a Norris Trophy as the league's best defenseman, a Hart Trophy as the league's most valuable player, a Stanley Cup, and 2 Olympic gold medals. He is in elite company as one of 30 Triple Gold Club members, having won an IIHF World Championship, Olympic gold, with Team Canada and Stanley Cup. And actually, this weekend, I saw online, you were just retired with the St. Louis, the Sports Hall of Fame, right? This weekend?
Yeah.
And the list goes on. I'm going to post his bio, and you guys can read it. I mean, I've got 2 pages here of accolades. What a leader. I want it to be about you versus me reading your bio where everyone else can read. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's go back to your younger years. I mean, you say you grew up in Dryden, Ontario, where you played hockey on the outdoor rink, on the street, in the driveway, at the local arena. How old were you when you first held your first hockey stick?
Boy, that I don't know. Probably, two-ish, three-ish. The funny story of it all is I have an older brother, 2 years older.
Okay.
And I was 4, and my parents asked me, "Do you want to play?" and I said, "No, I'm good. I'm good." And and then I was the kid with his face against the glass watching my brother. And I'm like, "No, I want to do that." And they said, "No, you said no." So then I spent a whole year watching him, but also learning how to skate and just doing skating lessons. And ultimately that decision probably helped me out the most, because I learned how to skate. I learned edge work early on without having to chase a puck, without having to worry about the puck. So then the following year, when I was able to sign up for hockey and able to play, I wasn't worried about my edges and worried about trying to skate. I was just able to naturally, as shoddily as it was at the time, skate around and then track the puck down and do all that kind of stuff. But it's funny how decisions we make turn out for the better. And that's one of them.
Well, I love that, because I do a lot of stuff on mindset and resiliency development. And I love that your parents said no, they kind of put the choice in your hands, right? Just by saying, well, no, you said no. And then, so you got to work on your own skill set, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I tell my kids all the time, no is a word in the English dictionary.
I know, one that you probably had to learn to use a lot as your career grew and you developed. I mean, you ended up in the OHL in Peterborough. I was actually there last week, and it's funny that we were interviewing you today, because a couple of the locals there, I was telling them that you were coming on. They were like, "No way, we love Chris Pronger." So throughout your entire career, there is a through line of leadership that I am fascinated by. Did you cultivate and nurture that yourself, or did you have some hardships that forced you to have to stand up? I mean, you were 6'6" and 220 pounds when you were in the NHL, so size may be a little bit of an enforcer naturally just by your size. But was that something that you kind of always naturally gravitated to?
Yeah, I think I gravitated more to, watch how I play, watch how I practice, watch how I train. A couple things early on in I guess my childhood, I got cut from a couple teams, one of which was political in my opinion, but it also was, I didn't train as hard as I should have. I wasn't prepared to give it my all. And I think that really sparked something in me to make sure that you don't leave anything to chance. I don't care how talented you are. You still got to work hard. You still got to push yourself. And when things like that happen, you have a mind shift and a mindset of, okay, this happened. Here's the cause and effect. And now we don't want to make that happen again. And what are you going to do about it?
I actually love that you said this. This is so timely because kids are in tryouts. My littles are, George is 8 and Sally's 10. He'll be 9. So they just it's their first year going for competitive, and they one went to the end of A and then got cut. And there were tears in the household, but I was like, now we get some feedback on what we need to work on. And I think it's so important. I really see, and I'm not someone that puts down the younger generation or whatnot, but people want more for putting in less effort. And I think you nailed it on the head. And I mean, I bet you those teams that cut you are like, they were like, we made the wrong cut then, but,
well, in the end, it helped me.
Of course.
It ultimately didn't help them because I didn't go play for their teams after.
Exactly.
I do have a very large chip that resides right over here.
I'm sure. What would you say to young athletes? I mean, I love that. That's a work ethic. That's a mindset. How would you help young players cultivate and nurture that on themselves? I mean, Claude Julien when we talked, he was like, you can't, kids either have it or they don't. They're either practicing or they're not. But I do believe some kids just need a little push. What would be your advice to parents or athletes that, okay, you did get cut, you didn't make the team. What would your next steps be?
Well, I think first and foremost, it has to be about them.
Mm-hmm.
They have to want it.
Yeah.
I wanted it. I was always out playing, practicing, doing stuff, fighting my brother, fighting fighting, competing.
Yeah.
And that has to be innate in the kid first and foremost. And then from there, they have to, you can support, you can guide and steer. They have to do the work. Too often you see the parents that are living through the kid and grinding on them. And it's not really, they're not passionate about it. Yeah. You got to have passion and drive to be better, to be successful, to want to compete at a high level. And too often the kid's just showing up because his parents are taking them there.
Yeah.
And you got to, when my kids stopped playing hockey, I was just like, you're going to do something. You're going to compete. You need to be competitive. You need to play a sport. You need to be active. You need to socialize.
Yeah.
And by the way, that there's such a small selection of kids that get to advance and play at that next level. Sports is about having fun. It's about competing. It's about having fun. It's not always about going to the next level.
Yeah.
There's the subset of kids that are good enough to keep advancing, and other kids, it's for fun. Too often we lose sight of that.
Yeah. And what would you say there was ever a point along your career where you really felt more the business aspect as opposed to the fun part? I mean, obviously when you go into the NHL, there is the business side, and it's your livelihood, right? So you're from that standpoint, but
I think early on when I got cut, as I said, I think for some political reasons, and obviously, some of it was my fault, but that was an early sign. Don't leave anything to chance. Don't let that side of the game, the business side of the game, the figureheads that are in there moving the chessboard around, don't let them have a say and, be good enough that they can't leave you off the team.
Yeah.
And so you put in the work, you put in the time and the effort to prepare, and then you go out and execute. I mean, it's a simple strategy. And you do need to keep it pretty simple. It's not that hard. It's just, we make it hard on ourselves by not executing and not putting in the work.
I love it. I love it. Exactly what I preach about. So when you hit the NHL, obviously you played for a number of different teams. Now, a lot of this conversation is around transitions and how do we navigate when life throws a curveball in the perceived future that you have for yourself, right? I mean, no one expects to get a slap shot in the heart, or even though you were back 4 days later, but when you've had different moments, so trades and transitions are kind of where I'm going with this. Can you speak to what athletes go through or what your own obstacles were? Like, when was there a time? I mean, you do have that leadership mentality. So I would imagine you kind of have a different way of thinking than someone kind of that sits on their heels and it goes to, you don't sound to me like you go into like victim mentality. But what were the biggest transitions for you along your career that took a little bit more grit and resiliency mentally for you to get through to the next stage?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mantras I had when I was playing and now after is mind over matter,
Mm-hmm.
and really not falling susceptible to ideologies that are bouncing around in your head, the woe is me, all the different things that can transpire when something bad happens. It's okay. It's funny. I was watching a little clip on Jocko Willink, the leadership coach, former Navy SEAL, and he's like, good. Something bad
Well,
happens.
so well.
Good.
Yeah, I know.
Just giving us a chance to correct and be better and find a solution and learn how to train ourselves to find a solution and be better. And it was something that every time something bad happened, yeah, you feel bad. And then you're like, okay, now good, turn the page. Mind over matter. Okay, that doesn't matter anymore. How are we going to fix it?
Yeah.
How are we going to transition? When I got hurt in Philly, I called two of my dear friends and mentors, and they both flew into Philadelphia. My career was over, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I had obviously been planning over the years, like, okay, what do I want to do when I'm done? And you're making investments, you're doing all this stuff. And ultimately they told me, they're like, you know what, for that first year, number one, I had to get healthy. But number two, they're like, don't do anything. You're going to want to jump at everything. Everything's going to sound amazing because you don't know what you want to do. Everything's going to be appealing in the sense that you want to give back, you want to invest in this, you want to do that. You're not going to the rink every day and getting that endorphin rush and getting that big sweat that you're used to. And you're like, okay. I sat back literally for a year, and I'm like, such sage advice and wisdom from both of them, having them gone through it and learning from what they had to go through. You sit back, you take notes on the stuff and get a better understanding of what it is and what whether it's an investment or charitable endeavor, what have you. And then you come back in a year and go, okay, this one still resonates. This one speaks to me. I like this. Why did I like this? And you start going through your notes, and now you can move forward as you've kind of gotten a little healthier, find a path to healing, and then get a better understanding of what's speaking to you, what resonates, not only up here, but in your heart, and what you want to do.
Oh, I love it. Such great advice. I mean, for those, it's so easy, especially I was listening to one of your interviews on The Drop, and you said you're an extreme, what resonated with me, or the way I heard it, was extreme. You said you're either all in or all out, because that's me. I can't do anything half-assed. It's got to be full bore. And literally, like, my husband has to be like, Janine, we do have kids. When I get a goal in my head, I just disappear off the face of the planet and make that goal come to fruition. But that's what it takes. But for those of you listening, transitioning to life after sports, be okay with taking a year off. That is such huge, and it's so simple. It's so true. Like you said, we go to work on it in our heads and becomes more complicated. Are you someone, so I'm very big on self-observation and self-reflection. Now, in that year, you said you take notes. Are you someone who journals, or do you meditate, or what do you do for your mental fitness? So what's kind of your thing? Or I know you said you like to fish, so maybe the water is where you like
fish,
to
get outside, walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, with my eye, I needed to get outside more, you're stuck in a hole, back then, 2000,
Did you feel down?
11, 12, it was all right, sit in a dark room.
Yeah.
Obviously the process has changed significantly, almost on a 180, where they don't want you sitting in a dark room. They want you to get out, get sunshine, get some fresh air, get some normality back to your brain and allow it to heal a little more normally, as opposed to sitting in the darkness and just kind of staring with your own thoughts in the dark. That alone is not very stimulating, so or healthy. So I think just that process, and then from that comes you're out in the fresh air, you're walking around, you're getting your brain stimulated, and you're hearing the birds chirp and deer crossing the street and all the stuff that happens here. And now all of a sudden your brain starts activating, and you're thinking about what's gone on, what's interesting, and you can kind of create a path forward from that.
Yeah, I love that. It's super important. That. So now again, leadership, again, it doesn't strike me as any surprise that you've gone down like the investor entrepreneurial route, which we'll get to. A big topic of mine is self-leadership, which you have in spades, and I really respect and admire about you. But as someone who has achieved a lot, it is tough to sit back and get quiet, because you're used to achieving and you're so hungry for it, right? So
you're used to being, as we like to say, motion's lotion. The more you're moving around, you just feel better,
Yeah.
and you're engaged in things, you're moving around. It just, now with a knee replacement and a bad back and all this stuff, just moving around, you feel good. And so having the ability to kind of really dig a little deeper to find, we all change, we all adapt, we all continue to evolve. And sometimes your passions change, sometimes the things that your interests change. And so you always need to keep the goalposts moving and challenging yourself to be better, challenging yourself at whether it's golf, fishing, whatever, everything in life is a competition,
for
whether
sure.
it's with yourself or with companies or with whatever. It just, it just is. So I think being able to continually to challenge yourself to be better, as that me versus me mentality, you just get better, one step better every day. You're just going to continually evolve.
And when you so again, in this topic, we talk about like life I find it when athletes get hit with injury and their immediately life is overnight just switched because they can't play anymore. I mean, I've interviewed some athletes that are now, quadriplegic in a wheelchair, and they're going the Paralympic route, which is amazing that they were mentally able to get over that. But when you got that slap shot to the heart, I mean, I heard your interview because you kind of forgot what happened, but tell us about that experience. And did that thought cross your mind, or did the elite athlete, I mean, you said you were 23, so it's like, you're not thinking like, yeah, I'll just go back out and play, but talk to us about that experience and what that meant for you as an athlete.
Yeah, I think, you're initially scared. You don't know what's going on. You're kind of really not understanding of what transpired.
Yeah.
You're on, an ambulance on the way to the hospital, then you're at the hospital, and you got all these people hovering over top of you, checking you every 5 seconds and looking at your monitors and all that kind of stuff. And then I get back to St. Louis the next day and I see a heart specialist, and she runs me through a battery of tests. I wear a monitor. I go back to see her the next day. We had a game that night, and I'm basically like, can this happen again? She's like, yeah, but so many things have to, in a nanosecond, so many things have to be triggered for that to happen again. So I'm like, so it's pretty much a one-off. She's like, yeah. I'm like, so I can play. She's
Freak
like,
accident.
Yeah. Am I going to do any damage long-term? No. Am I going to do any damage short-term? No. I'm like, well, then why wouldn't I play?
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm fine, I'm fine. There's scar tissue there from getting hurt, but the quicker you can rip the Band-Aid off and just get back out and get hit again and kind of immerse yourself into a game, the quicker you can turn the page in your brain and kind of push it to the back and get playing again. So I didn't want to sit there and, as you talked about, the woe is me card and all the things, like I didn't want to sit there and draw any more attention to myself. There was already a large spectacle on it. I wanted to turn the page and just get back to playing and win hockey games.
Well, actually, this is a great segue into my next question around social media and the world that it is today. I mean, as a pro athlete, we didn't have as much of that when you were playing in the early years. I mean, it started to come out probably towards the end of your career, the early 2000s. But what advice would you give athletes today? I mean, there's like people have a cell phone anywhere when it comes to privacy and injury retirement, or if they are going through these transitions, what would be your advice around the social media aspect of things? Because we can't get away from it. It's just there. It's always going to be there.
You can look at it two ways. You can be on it or you can be off it. And if you're on it and you're putting all your stuff out there, and you got people rehabbing a knee injury and they're documenting every day so people can see, everybody's different. Some people want to do that stuff in silence and push themselves and grind, and others want to put it out there, and it's everybody's choice. But I tell people, if you're not, early on Twitter and Instagram, some of those things were starting when I was in Philly, and some of the guys were on Twitter, and everybody's a tough guy and keyboard tough guy, and and
keyboard warriors,
keyboard warriors sitting in a Barca lounge in their mom's basement, and you're looking at how it affects them and how they're reading these comments from people that they don't even know, that in the grand scheme of things don't matter. I'm like, a couple of times I'm like, why don't you just get off that right now and focus on our game? Are you playing to the best of your ability? No. Why? I don't know. Well, first off, maybe get off that. Focus on what you need to do, which is getting in the gym, practicing harder, playing better, and all those things will take care of themselves. And then guess what? Whoever just chirped you on there, if they don't pat you on the back for getting better, then they're a hater, and they're always going to be a hater.
I
And
love
don't
it.
worry, don't lose any sleep about somebody you don't know.
Exactly. And you're such an action taker, and you can see that. And what I love about that is, again, people go to work to complicate it, and you just ask the right question. You know, are you playing your best? No, why not? Because you're not hitting all the things that you're supposed to be doing that make you a great athlete. It's like keeping the main thing, right? And then blocking out all the noise.
What do you, are you getting paid to be on Twitter? No. What are you paid to do? Play hockey. Well, then focus on that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that simple. It's not hard.
And so, and I noticed, you met your wife, and you and Lauren got married in 99, and stunner, by the way. She's such a beautiful woman.
2001. We got married. We met in right at the end of 99.
Oh, sorry. I thought I said
married
that your wife
right before 9/11.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I was in Alaska training camp. It's funny. We all remember when things happened. We were in Alaska training camp when that happened.
Wow.
Long ways away.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and you've got three children. So when they come, how did you manage those years, with wife and kids? How did you find that as an athlete? I mean, that's another transition on its own. Maybe it's not life after sport, but I mean, you see it. I mean, there's such a range of athletes that come in the dressing room. You've got your rookie who is, you know, all possibly more ego driven, and it's all new and bright, shiny. And then you've got the veterans who've been there and learned. And then you've got people that have family. How do you help? What would your advice be to athletes navigating all those extra things outside their sport?
I think it really just depends on the person and what they're, you know, everybody can be distracted. What sort of level of distraction? You know, I'd have my kids in the locker room or whatever, but I was, you know, that's the inner sanctum. The locker rooms, the dressing room is the inner sanctum. You know, before the game, like some sports, like I was in the St. Louis Cardinals dressing room during a World Series game, literally 3 minutes before the game. You know, some sports, it's, you know, that to them, that's just another game. They don't put any more importance on it than the preseason game they're going to have. It's just another game. And that's how they, you know, play their sport. You know, football, obviously there's a lot of pomp and circumstance and people hanging around. You know, basketball, same thing. Hockey, the locker room is pretty sacred and not a lot of people get to come inside there. And
for sure.
You know, I was pretty focused on, you know, when after our team meeting, when I started warming up, that's kind of getting my knowing what I needed to do to be successful each and every night and bring it each and every night. I had to start getting myself ready. You know, guys are out there and warm up, screwing around. I had a certain routine that I did, and I'm not.
Can you share with us that routine?
I'm not out there smiling, throwing pucks to kids. You know, I'm skating by players in the other team, kind of give them the look like you're mine tonight.
Yeah, actually, there was I read a lot about that, your ability to protect your family and really intimidate with your confidence. You have a lot of because I'm so fascinated with mindset and resiliency, and you have such a strong mindset. Yes, you have a presence, 6'6", 220. But they talk about enforcers, and a lot of people would think that comes from hitting, but you enforced in such a different way when you played, and it really was mentally driven. Yes, you had the physical size, but how did you just, that was just who you are? Was something, where did your first bout with resiliency come in? Like, I'm so curious, when did you have to overcome that really put you into that mindset?
I learned early on playing the game to be unpredictable. You know, if I don't know what I'm going to do, then they don't know what I'm going to do. And it gives you a little extra space out there. It gives you a little extra time. People kind of steer clear of you and they go to the other side of the ice, or, you know, it just, you get a reputation. And so as that started to play out, and then it was also about holding myself accountable. If I hold myself to a high standard and then I lean on a teammate, I'm not holding them to my standard, but I'm holding them to their standard. What is their best? How do they get to their best each and every night, and hold them accountable to, like, this is how we play.
Yeah. This
is how we come to play each and every day, practice, game. We prepare properly to play at a high level. And so, you know, there's games where I felt like I didn't, you know, some games you get like 3 points and people think, oh my God, you got a goal and 2 assists. I'm like, yeah, but I played like shit.
Yeah.
And
there's a difference.
But it doesn't, you know, people don't look at that.
No.
But in my head, I know I messed up on this. I messed up on this. I got to clean that up. But, you know, your first star, and you're like, but that, and then you play a great game, but you don't get no points. You're not even a star. And I'm like, that was one of my best games ever.
Yeah.
You know, out pass, defending, you know, it just, there's no rhyme, no reason, but holding myself accountable to a standard.
Yep.
So that when you do then saddle up next to a teammate and be like, hey, we got to get going here. They understand. I'm holding myself accountable.
Yeah.
It's something I wouldn't say to myself, or somebody could say to me, like, then you need to get going. I'm like, I am going. You need to get going.
Well, it brings me to, I talk a lot about to younger athletes about external and internal validation. And it's like, if you're always needing the coach to pat you on the back or someone to get you going, we need to work on that, right? That where did you find at a young age you were able to internally validate yourself? I mean, you see, you have great self-awareness. It's clear. I mean, you understand, okay, this is my goal. This is where I am. This is the gap that I need to fill. And it's usually based on your effort, exertion, practice, follow up, being prepared. I hear all that in what you're saying. But where did that come from? Like you have, obviously you've grown, you've been 19 years as a professional. So it's been cultivated for a long time.
Even as a kid, I didn't, you know, I didn't do it. I wasn't the guy that was always looking at the coach like, hey, tell me I'm good. Hey, okay. I'm like, I don't need you to tell me when I'm good. I don't need you to tell me when I'm bad. I know, I know when I screwed up. I mean, it's clear when somebody screws up, it's wide, it's all out there for everybody to see. And then when you do something good, I don't need that.
It's kind of hard to hide a 6'6" player too.
Yeah, but some players need that. They need that to make themselves feel like they're a part of something. I personally just didn't need that. It's just a innate trait, I guess. I don't know. It just, there's lots of guys that are like that. And then there's other guys that are the total opposite. And that's where, as a coach, when you're coaching people, you have to know the room. One size does not fit all. Everybody, I'm sorry, everybody does not get treated the same. That's not the way it works, because not everybody's the same. Some people need to be yelled at. Some people need to be corralled and coddled, and some people need to be left alone. And some people, it's just, and the great coaches understand that, and they're able to push the buttons in the appropriate manner for each one of those people. And whether it's, you know, somebody that's internally driven, set a goal, be like, hey, here's what you need to be doing today. Here's your guy. This person does not get across the blue line today. They cannot carry the puck across the blue line. And then that's your challenge. And then you keep moving the goalposts, or, you know, going up another ladder rung. And so always challenging yourself in that regard, and then finding the other player that, okay, we need to get going. Hey, you did really good on this shift. Here's what you did. Some players only want to hear positive feedback. If they hear negativity, they literally shut down. Just having an understanding of how people are and what their unique skill set is in a positive note and on a negative note, to be able to pull those triggers.
Yeah, I love that. It's so important as a coach too. And you can tell, given all the leadership roles that you've had, because you took care of your shit, they were able to show up and you pull them up, right? Because you can't, Claude Julien and I were talking about that too. And he's like, because they knew I did my work, they could trust me as a coach that I was going to show up and do what they needed. And that's the same for you as a captain, whether it be captain or assistant captain. I mean, that's a role that you played, which is super admirable. Now, are you still an all in, all out guy? Like in terms of extremes? I know, because I'm trying really hard.
There's only one, you know what, once it's there, it's there. There's only one way to do things.
Okay, good. I don't feel so bad about myself, because I've always been like if I tell myself I can do it no matter what. And then I go to work and make it happen until it happens. But that's interesting. Was your brother just a similar mindset?
Maybe not to the level. You know, I think when he knows when he needs to get something done, he'll do it. Yeah. His daughter challenged him and said he couldn't do an Ironman. So he's like, what? I'll do an Ironman. No problem. Awesome. Trained by himself, did, you know, bike, swam, did all that. And then he went and did an Ironman. Good for him. You know, you see the challenge, and you want to send a message to your kids and all that. So it's pretty cool when he was able to do that. I love that. And again, okay, so a lot of the times when people are tuning into this chat, I love to pull out stuff that we can't find online, but probably for you, it's probably all out there. But is there what was the toughest thing that you've had to overcome as an athlete or as a human? Because I think a lot of times
athletes give us so much hope. But we only see the number and the name on the back of the jersey. We don't look at the human as a, who are they away from the rink? What was one of the biggest obstacles that really helped you grow and develop as a leader or as a player?
I think early on in my career, just being comfortable in your own skin, being, people staring at you. Why are you staring at me? 18, 19, 20 years old, people
Yeah, that's
staring.
true.
You don't really know why. You're like, what are you looking at?
Yeah, exactly.
And as you get more comfortable in your skin, you can be a little bit more yourself, but you're guarded. It just having your little inner circle of people where you can be yourself. And obviously, there's a lot of haters out there. Good luck. God bless. Knowing who they are, what they're all about, no matter what you do, they're gonna hate you. You got backpatters, you got haters, you got all kinds of people out there that you don't play for the right team, so they don't like you. They don't know you, but they don't like you. And you have to be able to understand the mindset of a fan, the game within the game, and then really a really good feel for how you need to act, and then act accordingly.
And what, again, the public eye is always on you, but when you have to make decisions or they affect a lot of times I find people don't realize, like, a family will make a comment and I'm like, they're human and they have a family or decisions that they need to make that are best for their family. Yes, hockey is what they do, but it's not who they are. Have you ever had to navigate that or go through something like that?
Times.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you do? Times, actually. You just put your blinders on and I mean, what's best for you.
You know what? I got to worry about my family. I got to worry about me. And if some fan gets hurt about something that was done, tough shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Deal with it.
Exactly.
Get over it. Turn the page.
And how is it with your kids?
You, Edmonton, turn the page.
I love it.
Get past it. That was, oh boy, that was 16, 17, almost 18 years ago. 17. Like, turn the page, please. Yeah. They're still complaining about it.
Yeah, ridiculous. I know.
You got McDavid and Draisaitl now. Focus on them. Have fun. Go to the games and enjoy.
You're so good at compartmentalizing. Like, I mean, that just shows you're professional, obviously. I mean, you do get emotionally hijacked easily. I don't feel like you do. Like, in terms of your...
It depends.
I'm not talking about behind closed doors, like yelling at your kids or wife, but no, do you find you get easily, I mean, I doubt as a leader, but you get, because you're fiery, which makes you a great leader and you're an enforcer.
I learned, my early days in St. Louis, I was very emotional, very intense.
Okay.
I learned to kind of dumb it down. Obviously, when, get traded, you're around other leaders, you kind of see how they do it. You start incorporating some of that into how you lead, always taking little nuggets from, whether it's Olympic teams or, different teams that I've played on. You're able to really take a lot in, and everybody leads differently, but when you're able to incorporate that, you're able to grow and develop as a leader. I think by the latter part of my career, I was less intense in that regard and more, understanding of certain situations, but then there are moments of like, okay, you got to have that balance of, okay, when does somebody need a kick in the ass? When does the team need to get a little wake up call here?
Yeah.
And then act accordingly.
Action is the name of the game. I love it. Exactly. I did post about you on social media that you were coming on. So I did get someone did they posted and said, can you please ask him this question? So I promised them that I would. They said, what was it like learning from Andre Benoit, one of the greatest strength coaches in the world? How did it help his game and lengthen your career? They were curious about that.
I think just as I worked with Charles Poliquin, and then Andre and Nelson Ayotte and some disciples were there as well. Just the body and how to train properly, how to push yourself to the limit and then be able to recover and basically rebuild my body. When I first met Charles, I had a bad knee and a torn rotator cuff. And I literally walked into Al McGinnis's house and I took 4 steps towards Charles. And he looked at me, goes, "You got a bad right knee?" I go, "Yeah."
Oh, wow.
He goes, "Left shoulder okay?" I go, "No." Like that, 4 steps, just by the way my body was moving, the way my shoulder was up, that, like,
Unbelievable.
seeing how the body was supposed to work, he was able to pinpoint, and then how to train properly, how to rehab first. Normally I would just go in here, okay, I can go do bench, I'm gonna go out, do all this stuff. Well, for the first month I worked with Charles, all I was doing was rotator stuff with 5-pound weights, and you're doing all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm in these gyms, and these meatheads are like, "This guy's an athlete?"
I
And
know.
then you start working out more, and then you start doing all the different things that you need to do. And he was incorporating new um, training methods that I'd never done before. So it was all new to me, and it was, trying to learn how to do it. And he was all about form. He's like, "I don't care how much weight you lift. If this is how much weight you can do with the proper form, then that's what we're doing. The moment your form breaks, you're done. Because now you're not hitting the targeted muscle that we want to hit. You're using a different muscle. We don't want to train that one."
Plus your risk of injury goes up greater if you start playing, right? And you're not 100%. I hear Coach Prime talking about this all the time on his episode. He's always like, "No, you're 80%, you're not playing, because then I'm risking losing you." And I don't think athletes listen to that enough. The ego hijacks them. They want to play, or they're the star player, and they want to. So that's really neat. That's harder. It's hard to slow down, as an athlete. Like, it's a slow down to speed up, because you're so used to.
I can attest to the fact that I don't know if I was ever 100%.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe in high school. Maybe in high school I was 100%.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I mean, I don't really know what 100% feels like. But I actually had that conversation with Valerie Burry one time. We were both out with knee injuries in St. Louis, and we were doing a little bag skate after practice, and we were sitting on the bench for catching our breath after one. He's like, when are you going to be 100%? When you? And I'm like, "I'm never going to be 100%. He's like, "What?" I go, "Dude, I'm never going to be 100%. My knee's going to feel fine."
Yeah.
But it's not going to ever be 100%.
So when you took that year off, like, are you still skating? I mean, for someone to go from that level, do we like beer leagues, or are we just like, you need to be in this? Like...
No. Beer leagues do not want me in their games. I was not a summer hockey guy.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
hated summer hockey.
Interesting. And are you
I need structure. I need nowhere. I don't need some guy out there. You can't hit him, and he's toe dragging and putting it through his legs. And I'm like, no.
So
you're to do that today.
Yeah, exactly. So you always took the summers off. You never skated while you were out of
season? No, I would
skate.
skate. Like, I would do, power skating. I would work on certain things, but I'd go out and skate a little bit.
So what's your take on, is it too much? Like, you see some athletes say, and again, it's got to be innate. The kids got to show that they've got the discipline and they want to do it. You're not forcing them to do it. But I see some athletes where their parents have them year round skating, and I'm like, that can't be good for the athlete.
Oh, it's not.
So what's your take on the summer training? Yeah.
I would probably take, once I'd work with Charles and I kind of remade my body, I would take a week off.
Yeah.
5-6 days. And even when I was off, I was still riding the bike a little bit, still doing something.
Yeah.
And then I would start rehabbing. And God forbid I didn't have any injuries, then I'd start working out.
Yeah.
And I'd start my routine and my program. And then I would probably skate. Now training camps later and later, but I would probably skate late August, start a couple times a week. And then the next week, maybe go 3 times a week for a couple of weeks. And then in the lead up to camp, probably skate 3 times again.
Yeah.
Just, feel the edges, kind of make sure your groins are going to hold up and your body reacclimated to the pressure it's going to be under. But I wanted to come back where I'm like, I want to be here. I want to skate. I want to play, just to get away and clear your head and get that inner passion back.
Yeah, for sure. And do have a question about I know you're an avid reader. Has this always been throughout your life, or did you cultivate this later in life? Because I do believe leaders are readers. I mean, you can still be a leader and not read, but in terms of when you have that emotional intelligence and that ability to lead at a whole other level where you have that awareness of emotion, like, do you study those types of books, or what do you like to read?
Yeah, I like reading biographies. You know, I'd read biographies, I'd read business books, you know, a little bit of fiction,
Yep.
but mainly, you know, learn about what made someone tick and kind of what, you know, you get to see kind of behind the curtain as much as they're willing to give you, but you know, to see what they went through, how they dealt with things, what happened throughout their career, and you know, it resonates more with you as you're kind of going through your own life and you're seeing what other people have been able to kind of work through.
Did you do it younger though? Like for young athletes that are in
I
their careers,
probably,
or,
you know,
or a little bit later?
I wasn't early on in my career. I wasn't reading a book a day. You know, but I did have a few books in my apartment.
Yeah, but were they opened?
They were opened a little bit. Yeah, they were open a little bit. But, you know, I think early on I was more focused on my work, my business, you know, what I needed to do to get better and develop and prepare, and more so on that side of it. And that was more later of, okay, what else can I incorporate into my game, how I prepare both mentally and physically.
Yeah, I love that. Was there a book that you'd recommend for athletes out there that you just love and think it really inspired you? Or just human
I don't
beings
know
in
if it
general?
inspired me, but if you haven't read Open by Andre Agassi, holy shit.
Yeah, it's like, okay,
oh my
Open.
God.
I'm writing that down. It's in my homework by
It
Andre Agassi.
is probably the best biography you will ever read.
Really, eh?
It's no holds barred.
Perfect. I'm excited to look it up. And I had one other question for you before we wrap it up. What was it like? Obviously, I mean, at the Olympics for you as an athlete, that must have been such a great experience. And how does it differ from your experience in the NHL? Or do you
You're
feel
putting together essentially an all-star team for a 2-week tournament. You know, a lot of these other countries, these teams all skate in the summer. I mean, you're taking a mishmash of players that really hate each other.
Yeah. And you got to
We're
gel
all play the
overnight.
same way. Canadians are playing the same way. And, you know, there's a good chance you had a few run-ins with some of your potential teammates. And, you know, as we all do when you're playing these teams, you turn the page. You're like, all right, we're going to set our differences aside for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And we're going to be teammates and we're going to play to the best of our abilities. And we're going to hopefully come together and have our best game be our last game and win a gold medal. And fortunate enough to do that 2 of the 4 times I represented Canada in the Olympics. And both times we won gold. That is exactly how it went. We started very slow and just got a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And then we started to find our form. And then as we were getting into the medal rounds, when it really mattered, we started to play our best hockey, and everybody was coming together, the chemistry, you know, everybody was playing in the right direction, playing for one another, sacrificing whatever they needed to do for the team to win, whether it was players that normally play 25 minutes playing 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It just, you know, people don't realize when a player is used to playing 25 minutes a night, 25 minutes a night, and they play 6.
Yeah.
How hard that is, not only mentally, but from a physical standpoint. You're used to being involved in the game, playing. And then you get the tap. Hey, you got to go win that faceoff. You haven't been on the ice in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a faceoff guy. You got to go win that. You're like, your heart's not going, you're not involved in the game. You're just kind of watching it go back and forth. It can be difficult on players. I mean, Patrice Bergeron in Vancouver, he was our 13th forward, and we had a penalty. The poor guy hadn't been on the ice for like 15 minutes. And they're like, hey, go win the draw.
Yeah.
I'm like, seriously? You think this guy do you think he really wanted to go out there and lose the draw? And then, he's going to lose the draw. He hasn't been on the ice.
Exactly. It's such great feedback, because these are things that people don't think about. You know, they're just there
in positions to succeed. He was not going to succeed in that moment. You're better off not even putting him on the ice. Like, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
great you want to get another guy into the game, but at what detriment? And how is he going to feel? Yeah, I mean, he's going to want to go. He's going to want to. He's just not immersed in the game, and he's not with the flow of the game.
Yeah, for sure. No, it makes total sense. Also separates the pros too from, I mean, to be put together in that short amount of time and to be able to show up and gel and do all the things that you need to do. I mean, such an amazing, amazing accomplishment. Any last words for, I mean, thank you so much for contributing to this conversation. I'm sure we could chat all day. You've got great stories, and I'm such a curious person. I have so many questions, but we'll keep it to the topic. And is there anything for, oh, I did have one more question. Sorry. Were you at peace when you left the game with yourself and that next? Because I find a lot of players, some of them struggle and they don't. Okay, cool.
When I got hurt, I'd already been in the league 19 years. It was different because that's when Crosby was out with his head thing, neck thing, head thing, and I talked to him after just to see how he was doing and kind of compare notes, different injuries, but if I was him at that time, I would have been crushed.
Yeah.
He had been in the league 5 years, had won one cup, and then that happened, and you're like, he's just getting into his game.
Yeah.
I was at the latter part of my career. There wasn't much left that I hadn't won.
Yeah.
If anything. If anything, and you're like, okay, been able to accomplish a lot of what I wanted it to accomplish. And, then it's just more about ego and about trying to, add on more stuff. And,
yeah,
when the time comes to shut it down, you listen to those that are smarter than you. And doctor told me, you're done.
Then you trust them. Well, and now, before we wrap up, you are obviously an entrepreneur. You have your luxury travel. What's the name of the company? I have it written down here.
Inspired Travels.
Yeah. So what was the vision there? When did that come to be? And what, just maybe tell the audience what's going on there.
My wife started that. It's called Well Inspired Travels. It, basically comes full circle to when she was a kid. Her dad was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, was given a 10% chance to live. With that, he looked at his wife and said he wanted to take the family on a summer trip, and they traveled all over Europe and got to see everything. He was off chemo at the time, so my wife got to see him full of passion and energy and excitement to travel and see the world. And then they came back from that trip, and he went back on chemo and radiation and was a shell of himself and just a beaten down man. All the while was planning the next trip, and he chose Asia. And the reason he chose Asia was because he wanted to marry Eastern medicine and Western medicine, learn more about holistic healing methods, transcendental meditation, acupuncture, all the things. And this is in the early 80s, so clearly well ahead of his time, thinking about putting these two together. Went over there, immersed himself in the jungle with Medicine Man for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. They went off and saw the Great Wall of China and what we're all over Asia, Southeast Asia, and then when he got back, a doctor by the name of Dr. Butcher told him that he had a radical new surgery and was going to save his life. Got the surgery, and 2 years after that was given a clean bill of health and never had cancer again.
Stop it.
So,
wow.
The healing powers of travel and what it can do for you and the mind, body, spirit. My wife got to see it at a very young age. And so that always resonated with her. And once my career was over and our kids got a little bit older and our oldest started driving, she was able to kind of put a little more thought into it and really kind of follow one of her passions.
Oh, that's so special. It means even more. See, it's funny. You see these, that's why I love these conversations, because you see the titles and you see all the accolades, but when you hear the story behind the intention and the purpose and that's driven behind it. So, well, congrats. That's really amazing. And I hope nothing but success in that endeavor. Any final words for our listeners again?
I do have one more company that was just started.
Okay. Tell us about it.
The Journey Whiskey.
Oh, yes. The
medicinal
Journey
purposes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And tell us about that. How did that come to be?
This is a collaboration with my brother, Sean.
Okay.
And Niagara Falls Craft Distillers based out of Niagara Falls, Canada. It's 100% Canadian rye whiskey. And we have a large announcement
Ooh.
in a couple weeks in Ontario.
Are you
For all
coming
of
to Ontario?
Ontario. Pardon?
Are you coming?
I will be. I will
Ah,
be. So we
exciting.
have a big announcement in
What's the date?
early,
We'll mark our
early
calendar.
October.
Early October.
October 5th.
Okay. October 5th.
Big
Mark your
announcement.
calendars.
Social media at The Journey Whiskey Instagram, at The Journey Whiskey Twitter,
Okay.
at www.thejourney.com on the World Wide Web.
Is this the only thing that's available to drink on your travel, on your the luxury travel?
Yes, yes,
There's a
yes.
bottle in every room.
Yes, as my brother likes to say, we've been putting a lot of R&D into this
Yeah, exactly.
over the last 30 plus years.
I love it. Well, congratulations. When is it out? Is the whiskey out?
It's out in Missouri. It's in some select bars and restaurants in Ontario right now. But this will be our launch with the LCBO.
Perfect. Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I give you my promise. I'll go and support and test her out. I'm sure my husband would enjoy that.
I'm sure he will.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on what an amazing career. You're such an inspiration to so many athletes. I would have never predicted that my UNH hockey Pronger blades. These are old.
No,
Like
we won't tell anybody how old those blades are.
yeah, these are old, over 20 years, and I still have them. I would have never foreseen having this conversation with you today, but I'm so grateful. I think it's so important that we treat the athletes, the whole athlete, as humans, and there's so much to the person underneath the jersey. And thank you for your honesty and vulnerability. It means a lot to me that you said yes. And episode 31, folks, transitioning to life after sports.
Pardon?
In the book. I know. So grateful. And Chris Pronger, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining this conversation.
Pleasure.